I'll make sure that the letter is forwarded by today itself, because since you have addressed the Chief Secretary, it may take some time to reach the field officer.
Hornbill TV de new medzi pemare higene se yere higene thakia nishna medzi pemare itia chakrama public organization yere ahigene ekta protest rally loyase yere ahigene thakia do taikhan laga protest taikhan laga itu rally laga purpose reason do ki ase go taikhan pra kwaro 20 days taikhan ultimatum dia laga itu por act nakura response na dia karne taikhan itu laga protest itu laga rally do hold krise December laga moina re hunipa hisab hoile do CPO khan ra claim kra hisab hoile do Maova village te kunba ge taikhan na bosti na hoigene alak manu land owner sare mati kinigene buhia khan laga taikhan laga kam construction la kam khan bi kuribole na dia laga opor yere CPO khan khushi na pa taikhan jaigene February moina re itu por Maova khan ge kotha kuile jado taikhan tare situation escalate hoigena moi khan bi itu la ground report bi kurigena aise itu por yere mohan saigene jado itu laga piche bi bishi hoise mohan alag incidents khan bi bishi hoise hoile bi mohan itia saigene jaise kole ro CPO along with APO khan yere protest rally ekta kure ase aru tai khan bra APO laga president Tejao Vihenyo pra bi ekta bishi dangor statement dia ro cookie khan hoile ro refugees ase koise aru tai khan yere taikhan laga ancestors pra CPO khan angami laga ancestors pra taikhan ge mati dia taikhan ge buhi wole dia ro itu khushi pa nai kole aru jaine dusra jaga re green pastures bisari lobi goise nohoile do taikhan inega peacefully buhi wole mon nai cordial relationship peacefully buhi wo mon nai kole do alag jaga re hi jaigine since they are refugees alag jaga re hi jaigine refuge bisari lobi goise moi tia ere khara kuri thaka nishna program khan bi loigine jawale ase itu eklai noe memorandum bi likhigine chai tai khan jaigine medzi phema town laga subdivision laga ADC ke huli bi tai khan memorandum submit kurle ase
some about 170 years ago Cookies first came to the Naga territory as mercenaries. After their purpose was completed, the masters left them and they became refugees in the Naga territory. Refugees. Having become refugees, the ancestors of Chakrama people, Angami people, and other Nagas, they accommodated these people to establish these refugees to establish their villages in the hope that we will coexist peacefully. But it is unfortunate that the Cookies time and again betrayed the hope and expectation of our ancestors. At Senapati mentioned, disclosed what we found in government archives, that in 1956, they wrote to the Prime Minister of India asking for guns to fight against the Nagas. Some of the Cookies are today refuting what is there in the government archives. Today they will deny that they are refugees. I challenge them to deny this fact. Just about, it is not even 1 month now, on 20th of June 2026, when the whole world observed World Refugee Day, the cookies participated, you will find them participating in the World Refugee Day on 20th June 2026, asking for global sympathy. June, इतना एक महीना भी हुआ नहीं. जून 20 तारीख ते पूरा पृथ्वी, पूरा दुनिया तो refugee खान करने World Refugee मानी है. 20th June दो. इतो दिन दे कुकी मानु भी World Refugee Day participate करी ने dance करी से आरो दुनिया लगा sympathy, दुनिया लगा तैखान refugee ऐसे कोई ने दुनिया लगा मोरो मांगी से. अब नगन even media friends, you can Google to the observation of World Refugee Day on 20th June and see the cookie participation in the World Refugee Day observation on 20th June, just 20th June 2026. It's not even 1 month now. So, to this very day, Nagas elsewhere, and in particular the Chakrama Public Organization, the people of Chakrama are honoring the commitment of their ancestors in the hope, once again in the hope that we will coexist peacefully. These people became, if it was not because of the kindness and the hospitality of the Nagas, allowing them to settle in their land, these people are otherwise. They are not even Indians. They are from migrants from erstwhile Burma, now called Myanmar. Naga manu jamin digine takhan kya amar jamin te boigine bosti bana bole dia karne takhan India manu ho Indian citizen paise to eneka hoigine pura central service te ki te kam paigine ase. Ami khan jamin na digine takhan kya amar mati te settle kuri bole mana kuri dile takhan to Burma laga manu ase to India manu nohoi to. Unfortunately, this is not acknowledged. We are not asking the cookies to do us good or pay us something for this kindness. We are just asking for peaceful coexistence. I think the stand of CPO, the stand of the Nagas are very simple, clear, and loud. Amakan laga mati de thakibo koile, shanti para amakan logot thakibi. If you want to live with us, let us live together in peace as good brothers and sisters, as announced by our President CPO. No, if you are not satisfied with the hospitality, if you are not satisfied with the goodness of our ancestors, go and find greener pasture. Leave our land. It's as simple as that. If you are not satisfied, if you are not contented with the goodness of the Nagas, if you are not contented, if you are not satisfied with the kindness of the Chakra Angamis, ছাড়িবি না আমার মাটি ছাড়ি কিনে যাবি না দোসরা ভাল জায়গা বিচাৰি লৈ লবি আমি কান তোমাক নিয়ে বন কৰা নহয় কিন্তু if you are going to stay in our land we are not stopping you from staying in our land our ancestors have given you land to settle we honor the goodness of our ancestors but let us coexist let us live together as good neighbors as good brothers and sisters with respect for one another. It was. Now, you see, way back in 1873, the Britishers have promulgated the Bengal Frontier Regulations Act of 1873. If you look at the protection provided by the Bengal Frontiers Regulation Act of 1873. The act is specific. It says it is for the native of the district. Native of the district of the then Naga Hills. Cookies are not native of the district of Naga Hills. So BFR 1873 does not protect them. They are outside the purview of Bengal Frontier Regulation Act. They should in effect be using ILP. Now if you come to the formation of the state, Nagaland state was born out of the 16-point agreement, according to which Article 371, Clause A was given for the state of Nagaland. Article 371, Clause A talks about protection of the religious and customary practices of the Nagas. Everything contained in Article 371, Clause A pertains to Nagas, Nagas, and Nagas alone. There is not an iota of thing which protects the Kukis under 371 Clause A. In spite of that, Nagas have been tolerant. We have been so liberal with them. Yet, if they push us beyond the limit, I think time has come for us to impose ILP on the cookies. They cannot come under the purview of 371 Clause A. The government of the day must know those people who have framed, promulgated Article 371 Clause A must review, re-examine themselves, look at the provisions and see for whom 371 Clause A is provided. Those people who are enforcing, who are supposed to enforce the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation of 1873, which is now also enforced in Manipur, should see for whom are these provisions given. I think the matter is very simple, as I said, and very clear.
I would like to firstly begin with how the Britishers came to Chakroma area, and way back in 1850, they conducted a household census where they found that Jerma was there, having a small hamlet consisting of 10 households, and as it has been recorded in the chronicles of the Britishers, and as oral tradition says, because of an endemic, Jerma villagers couldn't stay and they had shifted elsewhere. Decades must have passed, but when they came back in the 20th century, they found that their vast swaths of land, their battlefields, were occupied by Maowa villagers. It so happened that in their absence, the neighboring village, Pungulwa, a Zelian village that claimed ownership of the vacant swaths of land and had given permission to these Kuki villagers, namely Maowa. And Maowa used to pay an annual rent, what they call in Kuki language, I believe, ranpan, to Pungulwa village. But when Terma raised issues, I think the matter went to the court, but then before that it went to the traditional court, and in April 1973, leaders, Angami leaders from Fenyut, Konoma, Mezoma, Mejipema, 8 of them came, and 11 leaders from Zalian community. They came and they had a meeting at Gaili village, wherein Zerma village took the oath, saying that this is our traditional ancestral land, and they had taken an oath. And according to Naga tradition, Naga custom, since they have taken the oath, Pungulwa transferred ownership to Zerma village. Automatically, Maowa, being the tenants, should have started paying annual rent to Zerma, but they refused, and then started expanding the village. They went to so-called New Maowa and made a settlement there. But this was opposed by Zerma village and successive administrative officials in Mejipima, starting with ESA Kanika in 1979, prohibited Maowa villagers to make any settlement there in New Maowa. So did ESA, Molhujasa, and others. 4 directives were given to Maowa village in 1979 and 1980 by ESAs of Mejipema. These orders were not complied with, and I think the matter went to the High Court, and in 1981, the Guwahati High Court directed the then ADC of Parent, Mr. S. Lima Iyer, to look into the matter afresh. And accordingly, Mr. Lima Iyer had 3 days discussions with the concerned parties, with the stakeholders, with community leaders, visited the place himself, and gave a judgment, a 15-page judgment, clearly stating that Maowa is a tenant, not a traditional landowner, and it ought to pay annual tax to Zerma. But somehow, the Maowa villagers, they went to the High Court and brought a stay order in 1984, 81, and then another one in 1984. Then again, in 2001, the then SDO of Mejipima, Mr. Nipuso Telo, wrote a letter to Maowa saying that they should not make illegal settlements in disputed areas. But this was not adhered to, obeyed, or complied with by the Maowa villagers. And dragged on. And in 2010, the then DC of Dimapur, Mr. Muangwati Iyer, after perusing the judgments of Mr. Raslima Iyer, as well as all the orders passed by the administrative officials, gave a 30-day ultimatum to Maua to start paying taxes to Tsrema village. But again, I think they went to the court and brought some stay order. And herein lies the interesting part, the inaction of the government in implementing the orders of its administrative officials in the field, those people working on the ground. In 2021, or before that, 2018, Maua Village Council adopted a very funny resolution prohibiting landowners to develop their properties. It was widely publicized in the newspapers and it was strictly implemented. So when the landowners complained to the administrative officials in Medziphema, Dubashi Court of Medziphema passed an order in 2021 restraining Maua Village Council not to implement that resolution and to withdraw the same. In 2023, it is this Ichamuklima Abhinav Silwam passed a scripture to Maua Village, but then it wasn't implemented by government. And like I said, herein lies the interesting part that has compelled us to gather here today to insist that tenants acknowledge the traditional landowners and also at the same time to impress upon the government the need to implement its orders. The orders that have been passed by the administrative officers on the ground should be implemented in letter and spirit. If the government had implemented what its officers have ordered or directed, we Chakrama people wouldn't have gone to Maua on 13th of February this year. And today we needn't have been gathered here in the heat, inconveniently standing, tolerating the summer heat. But then the government also hasn't been doing what it ought to have been done. That's why we gathered here today. And the patience of the Angami people, especially the Chakrama Angami people, are running out. And we must insist that when our guests, our tenants are here in our land, they should follow our customs and traditions. We are strictly opposed to the kingship, so-called kingship, practiced by the Gambura of Maua village, because this is against Angami tradition and custom. This is against Article 371A. Article 371A has to do with the Nagas of Nagaland only, not with tenants, not with guests. Migrants and tenants should realize their place. And moreover, practice of kingship is against the Village and Tribal Councils Act of 1978. So we want to impress on the government to strictly go by the rules, uphold the laws of the land, acknowledge traditional land ownership, and implement its officers' orders in letter and spirit.
Our youth can laga voice. I on behalf of the Chakrama Youth Organization. Ami kan la youth bhavana ekta duita point aha kan ge share kuri dibo mona se. February 13 incident bra ajitot kinaga aise khisaru nakoi jobo sob jani ase. We have been patiently ajitot ami kan leaders kan parent body kan ajitot ami kan ge Isor bra ashirwad blessing dia nishna Isor laga wisdom bal American leaders kan ge dina peace thakibo lage American harmony thakibo lage youth kan thanda kuribi rukhibi American bal bra kotha kuribo ajitot inga rukhigina ajitot kunjise bal bra bhavana thaga de American ge hisab na gurile patience to khotom hoy ase khotom hoise aru rukhibo napara laga time aise ajitot peace rally rakhado kali person American nijer angami customary tradition practices pra kam kurna jaile violence pi lok pawone ki American laga emotion to logina kam kurle violence e ena pawone ki peace harmony to na thakibone ki itu bi dikhise hoile bi American leaders kamra ajito rukhaigana hadu American bi patiently aise dong taste mokhan laga patient do aro na sabi taste na kurbe aro government logode American customary barabi upor respect kurigina government ase government bi tu kon sida golti ase sai dibo koina American parent body khan barabi kwa bara government ge bi chithi pathaise American youth side barabi pathaise demand kumba koise timely intervene kuribi ki kun thik ase kun thik nohai ase aji mauba bosti manu American traditional land owner khange recognize nakura izat respect nakura itu saigna ta khange government ki bi appeal kurina ahi ase hoili bi government bi ajitot eku faisla unaigina itu kuria American pa nai time khotom hoy ase time khotom hoise rukuria ase American rukhi dibi patience rakhi dibi koya ase hoili bi ajibra American patience to nathaga ho jabo kali person tot American aji bal babana bra so let us be reminded government bi American mova bostite takhan leaders kan tinjon kon American CPO leaders kan ge dia kam kuise itu kan ge banishment dia tan itu bi honor na kure.
Our forefathers, in their wisdom and generosity, extended goodwill by allowing others to settle and live alongside us in peace and harmony. However, it is deeply disturbing that today we find ourselves facing threats and intimidation from some of those who were permitted to settle here through our goodwill and blessings. If such intimidation can be directed at the rightful indigenous owners of the land, despite our hospitality and generosity, one cannot help but ask what will become of us in the years ahead, considering the ever-growing number of migrants in and around Chumukedima and Dimapur.
I want to give a clear message to all the UGs, national workers of Nagaland. Cookies are not Nagas. Keep in mind that cookies are not Nagas. They are not fighting for sovereignty of the Nagas. Independent nimite Nagamanu nimite takhan fight pan hoide. But takhan to amikhan laga shelter logena. They want to train their boys. Takhan laga chokra hange train kugina. Amikhan logo larai kuribun nimite asde. Itu pera amikhan aji appeal kumna se. June faction holibi, cookie hange, edo shelter na kuribi, friend na kuribi ko na ji edo donaya se. And moreover, I want to remind the government of Nagaland. Government of Nagaland lo koman thagado. Those days, cookie manulaga village kiman hamigan chakoma, hamigan la traditional land, hamigan la ancestral land dase. Amikhan logo eku permission logena recognize kuya. According to 371A Constitution, amikhan la tradition, amikhan la culture, amikhan la to protection do, amikhan ke digina ase. So without our permission, government has recognized all those villages. Ite itu han amikhan lo fight ko ase. Itu pera immediate itu village kan di recognize ko lagi mo. Itu government ke appeal ko ase. Aji itu kan Ajibi ami gani tu meeting kuru bole ami anke ajib meeting rally do ami anke against kuru ase government ke to stop kuri bi ko ase ami an sob letter dikhi ase commissioner logo meeting kurise they are pointing their finger to commissioner don't get freedom dise koise apni an dikhi lagi bole letter do takan victim card khili ase Manipur de Tangkhul brothers Amian Naga brothers kan logo larai kura ase takan apni an sob media de dikhi ase takan Tangkhul not Nagas takan laga khela to dikhi ase na Amian Zelian brothers Lengmai brothers choijon ke buraise takan itu likhi ase kacha Nagas itia hamikan angami kan logo Chakrama Naga manu logo inaka hamian ke time khili ase angabi manu angabi khan tai khan la ka they want to divide us division kurina Naga manu ke bhag kurina aste aste kuri man ke murai di bole khotom kuri diba tahani to try kuras that's why Nagas my dear brothers of Nagas let's wake up
Office of the Chakrama Public Organization Okin Chumugidima Nagaland July 17, 2026. To the Secretary, Government of Nagaland, through ADC Medziphema, subject Charter of Demands. Sir, the Chakrama Public Organization held a peace rally on the 17th of July at Chanapani, New Medziphema, in connection with the ongoing issue with Mawa village. And as submitted earlier to the Government of Nagaland by the Chakrama Public Organization and Chakrama Youth Organization, it has been resolved today to reiterate our Charter of Demands. 1. The government must enforce the recommendations of administrative officials on the field, such as the orders issued by the successive EACs of Medziphema way back in 1979-80, and also the order of the then SDO Medziphema in 2001. 2. Ensure Mawa village adheres to the historical orders, decrees of the government and pay the nominal token tax in recognition of traditional land ownership, enforcing the then DC Dimapur Mongwati Ayers 30-day ultimatum to Mawa village to pay annual tax to Surma village. 3. Immediately review the status of the Mawa village council for its repeated violations of administrative orders. 4. The law enforcing agencies must ensure that the protection provided by the state does not become a tool for the suppression of indigenous customary rights. Should this village remain unchecked, it will likely continue to disregard government orders as they have in the past. 5. Immediate de-recognition of Mawa village since it has not been recognizing the traditional land ownership of Chakrama village, Surma village as decreed by the then ADC parent in 1981. 6. Immediate termination of Sri Siboy Changsan from the position of head GB of Mawa village and ensure that the arrangement of hereditary GB chieftainship be discontinued since this practice has no mention in the Nagaland Village and Area Councils Act of 1978. 7. Suspension of issuance of birth certificates, permanent residential certificates, indigenous inhabitant certificates, and all other official and government-related documents until such a time these documents can be issued strictly based on the 1963 electoral roll. 8. Executing and overseeing the expulsion ordered against the 3 individuals, namely Mr. Sutminal Vaipe, former chairman, Mr. Seboy Changsan, head GB, and Mr. Paboy Changsan, former chairman, by the Chakrama Youth Organization in accordance with the Angami customary law and practices. Signed, Jato Kimho, Sebastian Zuma, the President and the Vice President of Chakrama Public Organization. Copy 2, 1, Home Commissioner Nagaland for information. 2, Commissioner Nagaland for information. 3, DC Chumugidima for information.
To the Tagishe, Chakrama Public Organization kan yare ADC office te higene tai kan laga 8 charter demands memorandum yere office se submit kurise yere bra submit kura nishna itia state government laga hatte itu charter of demands saigene jabo atta points ase atta points majode important kumba hoile to tai khan yere siboi changsang position of head GB prata ge discontinue kurile laga demand ase ekta hoi jeshe kuile to yere tai khan laga traditional laws te ki implement kurubo lagi gine ase tai khan poila de kagos khan banai gine ahia nishna itu impose kurule itu implement kuribole laga tai khan yere bi demand kuri gine ase atta charter of demands ase moi khan yere dikhi gine ase ekta point number 7 hole the suspension of issuance of new birth certificates, permanent residential certificates, indigenous inhabitant certificates, and all other government related documents until such a time these documents can be issued strictly based on 1963 electoral roll. Moan yare saigine jaishe gole do thejao vihenyo pra ekta bishi important tai laga statement de aji protest rally de mention kura ekta ase gole do ki ase gole do yere cookie khan laga ta hando saigene jaishe gole do refugees ase aru tai khan do naga manu no hoy in fact cookie manu khan yere buhiule ase gole do tai khan bi inner line permit to lage koigina inia dangor statements kuma bi digina ase ahia din khan de updates ani thagibo ke krisinyo ke ho camera person wong Hornbill TV Mejipema